Hi everyone, welcome to the latest edition of Motorsport Muse, and this episode is all about driving styles. So what do we mean by driving styles? Well, if you think about Formula One, you can break up the era of Formula One over the 70 years into distinct sections in terms of the way that you would drive the cars. So if you think about the 1950s, you had guys like Ascari, Fangio, Moss. They were real masters at driving those slippery little cars with really thin tyres and getting them into drift. So you'd come up to a corner, you'd get the thing flicked in and drive through the corner on the throttle. Not too wide, but if you think about the the famous Fangio picture at Rouen in 1957 where he's got the car in a beautiful slide going down the hill at turn one, that's kind of the way that you would drive those cars. You then got into the early 1960s, which was the 1.5 litre formula, really underpowered cars, and guys like Jim Clark were masters at driving those because you needed to be economical. You didn't want to slide the car because you didn't have the power to kind of back it up. Then in the late 60s, you had the start of the 3 litre formula. So you had little, probably 400-500 kilo Formula One cars with, in 67, the DFV engine probably had 400 horsepower. And those things you could drive on the throttle. So you're kind of going back to the 1950s style. And then into the 70s, you had the big slip tyres. You had cars like the Tyrrell P34, the 6-wheel Tyrrell, which just lived in opposite lock. And guys like Jochen Rindt, Ronnie Peterson, Tom Price, Patrick Depailler, Gilles Villeneuve, they really thrived in that era because although it was economic, you could drive them economically as well, like Niki Lauda did. If you were a driver where you threw it around a bit, it didn't really matter because the cars were kind of almost set up that way with these big slip tyres. Then into the 80s, it started to kind of get reined in a bit because you had so much power with these big 1,000 horsepower turbo engines. You started to get big diffusers, blown diffusers, big wings, and they realised that the best way to drive these was just to be really planted. And the problem with those cars is they had so much turbo lag that when you came off a corner, you'd hit the throttle on the apex, expecting there to be a 1 or 2 second delay before the power came in. So if the cars were Larry, it was on the exit under power, not when you were going into the corner. And then from the 90s onwards, that was really the start of the aero era. So you think about, Adrian Newey's Leighton House Marches from the late 80s. That was really the start of the kind of sculpted, shaped concept, really thin, narrow monocoque, these big wings, big Venturis. That was the era of the aero car, and we're still in that really. So the cars from then till today, really, they need to be really smooth. You don't want to be sliding them. You want to keep a nice stable platform, let all the air surfaces do their work without it being upset by sliding the car too much. So the question we're going to look at today is, considering all those driving styles over the past 70 years, which is the best way to drive a go-kart? So is it flicking the kart in, getting on the power, getting some angle and yaw in the car? Or is it being a bit understeery, being really slow and progressive with your inputs? And the way we're going to do this is do a track test. So I did 2 half laps of the same sequence on the same day, same set of tyres, me driving my kart. And 1 half lap was really considered and smooth, like a Alain Prost style, like a Jenson Button style, almost looking like you weren't going that fast, okay, but you probably were. And then the other half lap is more of a Gilles Villeneuve, Patrick Depailler, Ronnie Peterson style, so throwing the car around, getting on the power opposite lot, making a lot of noise. And we're going to time these 2 sequences, they're about 20 seconds each, and we're going to see which one was quickest, and then we're going to analyse why that's the case. So the first sequence is the kind of flamboyant, aggressive style. So I'll stop the video at the finish line, I'll time it, and then we'll go into the next video to see if the smooth lap was any quicker. So as you can see with the flamboyant half lap, it was around 21 seconds, which might be good, but let's roll the next tape. This is the smooth style, and we'll see how much quicker or slower it is. So as you can see, that was nearly 1.5 seconds quicker by being smooth than being, flamboyant and sideways, which would be about a 3 second a lap difference, which if you think, that's night and day in motorsport. When you're talking tenths, to be 3 seconds a lap difference in just your driving style, that's quite a big thing. So we'll now look at a slow-mo of each of those snippets and really try and analyse where one was quicker than the other. So first up, it's the flamboyant lap. So as you can see, I'm coming up to the braking zone, hit the brakes, and instantly the kart goes sideways. That's because I've braked too hard, and obviously there's only rear wheel brakes. So I've got the kart in a big drift coming into the corner, trying to keep it towards the apex, but what I've done is I've slowed it down too much. As a result, I'm accelerating hard off the corner, big kick of oversteer there, then it snaps the other way, but because I'm driving through the corner, I've got to get back on the power. So because the kart's in yaw, it's got too much angle in it, it's braking traction all the way through. And it kind of straightens up a little bit on the exit here, but then I go into the next right when I turn in, and that's when you hit the big bumps. And because I'm too aggressive again, it's upset the kart and I've got a big lick of oversteer again. So I get it all straightened up, and what you really want to be doing is a nice, slow, kind of gradual turn in here, but I flick it in, instantly upsets the rear. I mean, I hit the apex just about, but I'm on the power and I'm not actually driving off the corner. What I'm doing is I'm controlling the slide and not accelerating. And into this corner, I want to be braking nice and smooth. But what I actually do is get it turned in, flick it in again. I just managed to, I mean, that's a pretty decent apex to be honest, and then drive off. But what the 4 main things I did wrong in that sequence was I overslowed too much into the braking zones by getting the kart sideways. I was far too aggressive on the throttle, inducing oversteer and not driving off the corner. I was far too aggressive on the turn into the corners, and also my rear tyres were just getting extremely hot. And even this bit, which you didn't see on the clip before, my tyres would have been like white hot at this point, and they've just given up grip, and I've gone into this corner in a big drift. And that's probably a corner that lasts probably 2 seconds on a big slide, and I'm lucky I didn't spin it. I managed to get it on the curb just to straighten it out. But my tyres were absolutely melting. And then, just to compound it, you come into the next braking zone, which is a really tricky corner which you don't want to get wrong. Hit the brakes straight away, bang, big oversteer, and yeah, some big errors in that lap. So the clean lap, I'm coming in a little bit shallower. I'm probably braking in the same place, hit the brakes, I get a bit of oversteer, but I soon correct it. I don't let it continue. I keep a really high minimum speed through the apex, don't touch the apex curb. These days I tend to go more over to the left for the right-hander, but back then I used to accelerate hard, keep it straight up to the next apex like I've done here. Get it turned in, a touch of opposite lock, then it grips, get back on the power. And I'm hard on the power now through this right, and the reason I can do that is because the kart's not sliding. And I'm going to be wary now of 3 bumps coming up through this fast right, 1, 2, 3, but I can take it flat because the kart's not sliding and it's relatively straight. Now for the next corner, it's a really fast right, but I'm just thinking it in. I'm barely turning the wheel, getting it slightly turned in, hit the apex, run it right out to the exit curb. I could probably even have used a bit more exit curb. The next corner, I'm going to get late on the brakes. I can lock that rear axle a little bit, get it turned in, a really, really nice apex, carry a load of speed through. And as soon as I feel that front grip, I'm on the power, touch of opposite lock, and I drive to the line. So just that half lap was 1.5 seconds quicker. So that's a 3 second per lap difference. The tyres are a lot cooler, so you can sustain that. So over a 10 lap stint, you're 30 seconds quicker using that driving style. So I hope you enjoyed that. I think the key takeaway is whatever you're driving, try and be smooth. Whether it's a rental kart, a kart like this, a radio control car like this thing over here, if you're on a track day, even if you get into motorsport itself, the key is to be smooth. Now you can drive with understeer and oversteer, and even some modern F1 drivers would prefer understeer, some would prefer a bit of oversteer. Schumacher famously really liked the car on the nose. He'd turn the wheel and he wanted to grip straight away, and he could kind of live with the back end dancing around. But it's minimal, right? So they talk a lot about balance in motorsport, and it's a weird concept when you think about 4 wheels, but what they mean by balance is when they turn in, are all 4 wheels sliding consistently in the same way? at the same rate, and if it is, that's a neutral balance. If the front's sliding too much, it's understeer. If the rear's sliding too much, it's oversteer. So they want to get as close as possible to a neutral balance. Now they might build a little bit of oversteer into it because that can help turn a car or a kart in a corner just to get it pivoted, but you don't want to be fighting oversteer all the way through a corner because it's the slowest way, as you could see in that video, but also it just kills the rear tyres, especially in Formula 1. So all I would say is if you're driving anything quickly, be nice and smooth. Hope you enjoyed the video. It's quite fun making it. I'm going to do another one next week, and I'm going to try and do this one on Lewis Hamilton because I just need to get time to do it, but I've got a few good ideas on the comparison to Michael Schumacher, which is the natural kind of comparison now when you're talking about Hamilton. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great week, and I'll see you again soon.